What's up, honors world literature? Excuse me. I'm going to be talking to you guys about chapters 41 and 42 today. This was the back half of our reading from last week, and before we get through 43, 44, 45 today and tomorrow, I wanted to talk to you guys about these two chapters. They're both fairly lengthy chapters, so you'll have to go ahead and forgive me by not going too deep into either one of them. I just wanted to kind of hit some high notes. I think when I really do a deep dive on stuff, that tends to go 12 to 15 minutes, and that can be for one chapter. And these are two chapters that I feel like if I really wanted to, I could probably do a half hour on. Just a straight half hour of talking about what I feel like is important and what I feel like was interesting. And as you guys have seen in class plenty of times, I recognize that a flaw that I don't think it's a flaw, but one flaw you may think I have is that I could ramble and talk too much. I don't think it's rambling. I just like to talk about what I noticed. And especially if I'm interested in the subject material like I am this book. It's a good book. I've read this book three times now, four. This is my fourth. Yeah, this is my fourth time reading this book, and man, each time I'm like, yeah, it was good. One thing I wanted to point out about chapter 41 is the drought. First of all, things are bad. By the way, the drought. Okay, so just so you know, the drought. Things are very dry. Things aren't growing. The economy there, because of the Taliban and because of the drought, those two things combined, the economy there in Afghanistan is not good. Many people losing their jobs. But yet there's still like underground black market tape trading and things going on. We talked last week about how they got the television for Zalmai. I like Titanic City here. It's not just a cultural reference. I don't know if you guys caught that. It's not just a cultural reference. I think sometimes, if you're just an average airport paperback reader, you would just kind of think of that as a cultural reference and kind of move past it, like I did probably the first time I read this book. And I like this though because the more I read this book, the more I notice little things. And one thing you may have noticed is that the Titanic, if you know anything about not the movie, well, the movie, sure, the the Jack and Rose thing, that's nice. But if you know anything about the movie, you know that the movie is about a boat that is slowly sinking and it is out of everyone's control that is involved. The captain couldn't save it. The people on the boat couldn't save it. In fact, other than those that survived by getting life rafts, some of them women and children, and then some people kind of going and acting selfishly to save themselves, to save their own skin. But either way, this boat was sinking and there were many people that were going to die. This is a metaphor for what's going on in Afghanistan here. They're all aboard this sinking ship that is the Taliban. And look, summer of 2000, the whole thing is over with by 2001 for the Taliban. This ship is sinking. And many people know it, many people don't. But the Titanic is kind of the metaphor for that. Again, going to move quickly here. Rashid's shop burns down because of the drought. Everything is very dry. There was a fabric merchant didn't put out his cigarette, and so of course everything goes up very quickly. The way the wind is blowing, it takes out Rashid's shop as well. They had to sell everything, even Zalmai's TV. They're selling everything. So they're living in squalor, and there became a really good chance that they were going to starve to death. And again, we've talked about this before in the previous chapters when I can't remember what chapter. I have no idea what chapter it was. I could leaf through here, but Lila and Aziza were locked up in that room, and the problem with having a child that is suffering is that the child will typically die first, but just because they're weaker and they're younger and their systems require more attention, and they're weaker here. So Zalmai and Aziza are weaker. And so Lila is faced with the very real possibility that she's going to watch her children starve to death. And Rashid can't hold down a job, and he's not bringing in any money. So what is Kala Mariam going to do? Aunt Mariam slash grandma slash mom Mariam going to do? She's going to call her dad. That's right, Jalil. He's back. And for the first time since that chapter occurred, we get a flashback to Jalil sitting in his car outside Mariam. This happened early in part 2. Jalil, the older Jalil, white-haired Jalil, red tie, brown suit, is sitting outside the car in Rashid and Mariam's driveway while Rashid is at work, and Mariam won't come out to see him. That was in 1987. Well, it turns out that was around the time that Jalil was dying. He was dying around that time, and he wanted to see Mariam and maybe make amends with Mariam, even left her a note. And long story short, Mariam refused to see him. They made eye contact through a window, which is a direct shout out to part 1 when Jalil sees her through the window and runs away from the window while she's standing in the courtyard outside of his house. Place is reversed here in part 2 when Jalil is outside the house trying to get Mariam to come out. Mariam sees him and then closes the shade of her the curtain of her window. Well, it turns out through this phone call that she makes in this hotel that Jalil has died, and she regrets not. Her young, foolish pride, her anger at Rashid keeps her from, Jalil keeps her from going out to see her father. And she regrets that now. But this is 2000, so Jalil's been dead for probably 13 years. And what's worse, what really gets me about this chapter, these are 2 tough chapters that I'm talking about today. Maybe that's part of the reason I want to go through them quickly, because these 2 chapters really, I have a hard time. As a father myself, and you guys may not get this, but as a father myself with 2 daughters, I have a hard time with these 2 chapters, 41 and 42. Because Jalil had written her a letter, and Mariam shreds it. She shredded that letter. And so now we have no way of knowing what was sorry, that was an email. What was on that letter? She shredded it. She never went out and saw him, and he was dying then. And that was her one phone call, and that was her one opportunity to get some money. And of course, Rashid says, useless, snatching the phone from her, like daughter, like father. So Rashid, of course, showing no remorse. He doesn't care about his wife here. He doesn't care about how Mariam feels about all of this. And interesting note in chapter 41 is the doorman. Mariam sees the doorman and kind of like recognizes him. But for Mariam, she knows like 6 people ever. And that's total, like in her life. Mariam doesn't know anyone. And so the fact that she recognizes the doorman, Rashid pays no attention to this, but the bellhop down there at the hotel there in Kabul that they go visit. Jalil's dead. Chapter 42, one of the, you don't want to watch your kids starve to death. If you're faced with, here are your 2 options. Okay, you have a child, right? You have 2 children. You have 2 options. You have option number 1 is to watch them die. All right, let that sink in. Option number 2 is to take them to an orphanage where they are going to be able to be cared for by someone else. They won't live under your roof anymore. You can visit them, but this is Kabul, Afghanistan here. So it is a very, it's not exactly like Lila can go, freely to the orphanage and back on a daily basis to visit Aziza, but they pack up Aziza in April of 2001, right before Lila's 23rd birthday, which would put Mariam at 42. They send Aziza to an orphanage. They take her there. And even Rashid goes to drop her off. He doesn't really show a lot of interest in the situation, nor is he very upset. Zalmai and Rashid actually wait off to the side while Mariam and Lila and Aziza go to this orphanage. It's a very unique situation, is this orphanage. Zaman runs it, and it's not good. It's not good, but given the situation that they're in, Zaman is heaven sent, man. He's weird, and yeah, this they live in squalor there because there's no money. It's just this poor orphanage that he attends that he tends to. But these kids are getting educated. They're educating males and females, even though the Taliban forbids that. And these are a bunch of kids that would otherwise die. And I'll put it just as plainly as I could. These children would be dead. And this is at least a chance. And I would say, as bad as the situation is, a chance for Aziza here is better than her dying. And man, it just, speaking of which, just kills Lila to send her firstborn and only daughter. And Aziza's trying to be cool about it. Aziza's trying to cheer her mom up. But man, Lila just is, and I as a parent myself, I just really, and you don't have to be a parent to appreciate it, but I'm just letting you know, it's just, I just can't imagine. I can't imagine having to do that. They say goodbye. It's just difficult, man. It's just page 318 and 319 are just hard to read. You know, they would go visit, but not really. Rashid stopped going, so it's more difficult if Rashid doesn't go, because if you have a man accompanying you, you can go freely, okay? But otherwise, Lila has to go by herself. She, of course, is whipped and beaten, and sometimes she's dragged back. Sometimes she never gets to see Aziza. Sometimes she gets to, and she's risking her life to go and visit Aziza in this orphanage here in chapter 42. Interesting symbolism, and I'll try to make this quick because I know I want to get to the ending, but Aziza's so smart, and she's getting educated here, which we really cannot. We got to it's a bad situation, but she's learning, and she's not going to be like Mariam, who never learned anything. She's going to be like Lila, who was schooled, who was educated. And Lila would come, and sometimes she'd just be beaten, her jaw sore from getting punched in her back and her neck. She's getting abused at home. She's getting abused by the Taliban police out on the streets. And Aziza talks about tectonic plates, where on the surface everything is good, but deep down below, that's what causes the earthquake. And again, that's a metaphor, kind of like the Titanic in chapter 41. Chapter 42, we see Aziza trying to present for her mom, put on a smiling face, and I'm doing so well here, Mom. I'm learning so well. But man, she's developing that stutter. Just, deep below, it's scary, she says. A slight tremor. It may be erupting underneath, but only a slight tremor on the surface, like a stutter. And so, of course, there's a rich metaphor there on page 323. Our heart is just broken for poor Aziza here. Mariam is sad. Lila is sad. This is their child, man. This is Mariam's granddaughter, basically. And this is Lila's daughter, literally. And, it's tough. Anyway, they get a toy for, as they leave, on the way back from visiting, they get a toy for Zalmai. Aziza doesn't get anything. Oh wait, no, I think Zalmai has to put his toy back. Sorry, because it was too expensive. Aziza, of course, is just happy to be visiting with her family. Anyway, the part I want to talk to you about today, and I'll close with this, one of the great moments of this book is page 327. And if you haven't read chapter 42, now is the time to turn off this video, because spoiler alert coming up. This is the twist we talked about last week. So, finish 327, finish chapter 42. and you can come back to this market. 1503, you can come back. Page 327, there's a stranger at the door. Zalmai cries, "Get away, you!" Who are you yelling at? Who are you yelling at, Zalmai? And Rashid is not home. Aziza is off to the orphanage. It's just Lila. I'm not sure where Mariam is here, although I don't think they say. But Mariam, maybe Mariam is there. Mariam is the one that says hush. Anyway, yeah, she has to hold on to Mariam's arm as she opens the door. Sorry. Anyway, Mariam and Lila open the door. Lila opens the door, and who is standing there on page 327 but... That's right, a gentleman with one leg, Tariq. Tariq lives. Aziza's father is alive. Lila's first love, only love, is alive. The father of Aziza, he's been gone for, I don't know, what is it now? She's 23, 8 or 9 years. And it's a ghost for Lila. She thought Tariq was dead, which raises whole other questions, by the way, about this dude that came and visited and talked about Tariq's death. I'm sure we could put together that Rashid put him up to that. Anyway, she doesn't have to worry about that anymore because Tariq is alive, and that's where we get into chapter 43. Tariq is there, and so now maybe we can figure out what we're going to do about Aziza, who is at the orphanage. Her father is here, and this is a male, and you know, it's not Lila's husband. Lila's married to Rashid. So what are we going to do about Rashid? What are we going to do about Aziza at the hospital? Surely Tariq and Lila will get back together now, even though she's married. All kinds of stuff. So anyway, there you go. 2 chapters down, and that's 17 minutes. And that was me cutting stuff out. So anyway, I know this is a long video. There's 2 big chapters. Let's talk about at least chapter 43 tomorrow. I'll look at the length, and we'll talk about that. 43 through 45. I'll see you guys tomorrow. New questions coming on Wednesday. We're getting close, about a week away from finishing this thing. I hope you guys are enjoying it. I'll talk to you tomorrow. See ya.